And there are some years when I say, oh, too much money on charity, we've got to sell a painting because we don't have enough cash.
There are two John Stadzinskis, the investment banker and the philanthropist. John joins me now. Great to see you again. I mentioned the investment banker first and the philanthropist second. Is that the right order?
No. That's a very good question. You're actually one of the first people that's asked it in such a clear, succinct way. It gets back to that whole question of how do you want to be remembered on your gravestone. You have what you gave, you had what you spent,
right,
and you lost what you kept.
Well, I guess the reason I ask it, you've got to have it in order to give it. That's the right order.
That's the right order in terms of where the money comes from. It may not be the right order in terms of the ethos or the passion,
which is what I'm trying to get at,
or the strategy, or the purpose, or the goal.
And for you to have said just that, I get the sense you'd prefer to be the other way around.
Maybe the two have a good equal balance. I was at Morgan Stanley for over 20 years. I was at HSBC. I've had so many young people coming to me saying, talk about what you do with the homeless. Talk about what you do in the arts. So your ability to be a mentor to young bankers, to introduce philanthropy to them, that's been a great opportunity too, which is, I think sometimes a lot of people in the financial services world just don't think enough about.
Sure.
Whether they like it or not, the more senior you get, the more people pay attention to how you spend your time.
Is there a sense of you've spent 20, 25 years in investment banking, making money, the right thing to do is to give some of that money from an industry that has been so derided back? Is there a sense of that anywhere?
Well, that's sort of a cheap and cheerful sort of political expedient framework. I think the way I look at it is, we go back to the Bible, to whom much has been given, much is expected. And it's not necessarily, you haven't necessarily been given just money. So please get away from that sort of singular notion. Philanthropy is also about sharing talent, giving talent, nurturing talent, and it's also about giving time. When charities approach me and want my engagement, there's always that cynical reaction of, how much money do they want after I've been there for a year? Do they want £10,000? Do they want £1 million? Do they want £100,000? Some of the most interesting charities actually have never asked me for money. They've asked for my engagement from a leadership point of view. I'm chair of Create right now in the East End, which is about nurturing projects that nurture urban renewal, young artists, entrepreneurial approach to developing the arts in the 6 poorest boroughs in the European Union. They've never once asked me for money. They've only asked for my leadership and my passion.
So we look at a number of the ventures with which you're involved, the Genesis Foundation, Human Rights Watch, the Tate Modern. What is you've mentioned religion a few times. What is the one thread, do you think, that connects all those? Is there something, is religion that thread?
No, the thread is human dignity, the human condition. Whether you're working with a homeless person, you help them understand that they are no different than I am. We're both the same people, on the same planet, under one greater being. You're talking to a young artist. You're trying to help them develop their confidence. That's about instilling confidence, mentoring them, helping their dignity. You're working with someone whose human rights have been violated. Human Rights Watch is active in 137 countries. Yeah. Human rights around the world, rule of law, justice. That's about respecting the human condition and human dignity. So if there's a thread, the Genesis Foundation, nurturing a young artist, the homeless, the poor, youth unemployment.
Give me a little bit more on Genesis and what you want to achieve with Genesis.
If I set up the Genesis Foundation, and even if I inspire one artist to succeed, or 5 artists or 10 artists, I will have accomplished a lot. It's like with a homeless person. If you can work with one homeless person and you change one life, then you've done it. If you can change one artist, you've done it.
And that's success, is it?
From my sense, that's the ethos of success. You start off, you do things right, you do things wrong. Some things have a pause. It's like cultivating a garden. Some years it rains, some years it doesn't, some years you have fertilizer. So sustained philanthropy, tenacity, patience, all these things are necessary, particularly when you're dealing with something like Genesis.
For a layman, how does a philanthropist decide on what percentage of his or her income to give to any one cause?
Well, in my case, I give away far too much. I probably give away more than I have.
What percentage do you give away?
It depends. On a given year, some years it could be more than 50%. In other years it could be, it really varies. I mean, it depends on the program, depends on the project, depends if I feel as though in a given year someone approaches me and says, this amount of money will make a difference in this particular way. So it
depends on your passion.
I don't approach it scientifically, because I actually, and there are some years and when I say, too much money on charity, we've got to sell a painting because we don't have enough cash. So we're going to sell a painting, or we're going to reallocate part of our portfolio so that we can satisfy some of our charitable giving.
How has the environment, this very difficult environment, investment environment, changed those percentages, affected the decisions that you're making?
I think the investment environment obviously does change. Stock market, you can look at it in the last 30 years. Stock market up, people feel wealthier, their shares are worth more, they can gift their shares, they can gift other things, they can gift cash. So there is a tendency to give more. Having said that, I think the most important thing about my last 30 years is one has to, for philanthropy to really work, one has to have what I call sustained giving. You know, when I worked with Mother Teresa, she had that great line, which I think everybody should take on board, which is, we had to wash the floor every morning. And you know, you would say, okay, I've washed the floor, do you really need to do it every morning? And the reality was, unless you learn to teach yourself humility, God will teach you humility. And if God does it, it's not going to be as pleasant an experience.
Right.
And that, I think, translates into how you spend your time with charity.
Do you have a passion for something that you have not yet given to, not yet nurtured, that we'll see you do over the next 10, 20 years?
I think I want to continue to be able to spend time with people to encourage and nurture people, whether they're artists or philanthropists or students or homeless people. And it's not about money. I think one of the things about charity, people have to stop thinking that you're respected just because you can make a donation. People are generally respected if they have a sustained approach for, as I go back to my 3 T's, your treasure, your checkbook maybe, but also your time, also your talent. And it should have a sustained participation and balance among those 3 T's. And if you do it for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, what you get out of it in the end. It's like if you've ever met someone who spent a lot of time with homeless people, they'll say, look, I don't do this. I know I'm helping all these homeless people, but you wouldn't believe what it's taught me about myself. I've learned so much about how I relate to people, and that really helps me in a broader range of living.
Thank you very much indeed for your time.
You're welcome.